everyone, it's Ellie here. I'm here with my gorgeous husband Lars. Say hello, Lars.
Hello.
And he's going to be asking me some questions from my audience, my community, about my new collection, Je Suis Wibbly-Wobbly, which is a glorious, wonky, vibrant collection of loveliness. So let's do it.
First question. The paintings, they have a physicality to them, the textures, the layers, the way light plays with the colours. What's your process for building that depth?
So one of the things that I love to do to build up that texture is I use a palette knife more than I use brushes or anything else. I quite often use my fingers. I really like to get in there with the paints and smoosh it about. It's a very technical term. The way I paint is more like it's almost like sculpting. It's like icing a cake. So I use very, very thick, heavy body paint and I lay it on in layers and layers and layers, and I'll let the marks of my craft shine through. So any marks that come up, I'm not trying to obliterate them, I'm trying to bring them out more to the surface to create those textures and those interesting like knobbly bits on the surface.
I love the titles for your paintings. How do you come up with them?
They just come to me. It's not a very satisfactory answer. Often it comes out of conversations that you and I have together. So we'll be talking about something and we'll riff off each other, and out of that something will come up. Often I'll have like one or two definite titles that I have in my head that need to be attached to a painting, and then that will kind of form the seed from which the rest of the titles are sort of germinated. But it all falls kind of within the theme. And it's sort of like poetry, I suppose. Each title is almost like the line of a poem. Each title in this collection has a particular connotation that marries up with the painting.
I guess that means that the paintings are also part of a larger poem.
Yeah, sort of a visual poem, if you like. I like that.
So when someone says to you, someone looks at your paintings and they say, I don't get it, what is your response? What would you want them to know before they dismiss it?
It's a really interesting question. Obviously, I have to put my ego aside. This isn't so much what I say, but what I feel is if somebody says that they don't get it, then my sort of instinctual response is, then it's not for you. And that's probably my ego getting in the way. But also I found that the people who really kind of get my work, it just happens like that. Like it's an instant energetic vibe match or something.
So you're okay with them not getting it?
I'm delighted when people don't get it, because if people don't get it, that means that I have done something that is true to me. And if people don't get it, conversely, it means that some people will get it. The last thing I want to do is to make work that's sort of pleasing to everybody. I want to make work that is really, really attractive to some people, and that means making work that is actively repulsive to other people. But if somebody wanted sort of a way in to access the work, then I would suggest that they spend a bit of time with the pieces. Understand the story behind it, understand the concept, and just spend a little bit of time with the work, looking at it, taking it in. There's more information the more you look. My paintings reward looking, and the more you look, the more you see.
So conversely, what's the best possible reaction people can have from seeing your paintings?
My favourite reactions are when people jump up and down. It's hard to convey that through a computer screen or a YouTube video or something like that, but sometimes when people see them in person, they'll jump up and down and squeal. What I'm always looking for is a point of connection, for someone to just be like, I love this and I don't know why, or this is me, this looks like how I feel, or this just makes me laugh, this makes me feel good. There's something magical that happens when people truly get the work, like on a deep level, and it's just the most gratifying thing to me as an artist, because every piece of work I make is an attempt at a conversation, an attempt at a point of connection with somebody. Like it's me saying, this is how I feel, this is how I see the world, how I'm interpreting this feeling or this event or this situation or what have you. And for people to come back to me and go, on some level, me too, that is everything. That's the best reaction I could possibly have.
Which of the paintings is your favourite then?
Oh, it's like asking me to choose my favourite child. I don't have any children, so none of them. This is the one that I can't bear to part with, mostly because it reminds me of you. This one's called I'll Watch Over You and Keep You Safe, and it hangs in the studio here, and he watches over me and he keeps me safe, and he has such kind eyes and such a lovely face, and he just radiates warmth and generosity and kindness. Whilst I can't bear to part with him, we do have prints of this one. We have a limited edition print run, so people can have the same guardian angel in their own homes. But I love this one. I also love Falling Down Can Feel So Good, which I won't pull it down, I'll show it on the screen so you can have a look. I just think he's got such a noble face. Yeah, there's something about triumphing over adversity that comes through for me with that one.
This one is not for sale.
This one's not for sale, but the prints of him are. And one day maybe I'll be able to part with him, but not right now.
Which art style would you say you're most influenced by?
I'm really drawn to naive art, outsider art, self-taught artists. I find that whole genre to be completely fascinating, although the way it's spoken about is often incredibly patronising. But I think anyone who is working outside of the confines of society comes up with work that is incredibly true. It feels pure in a way, and that's not to say that other art isn't true or pure or whatever, but I think there's something about naive art that has the same elements of children's art, which I happen to think is the finest expression of art there is. Like, the pinnacle is the pure expression that comes from children. I love the expressionist movement, and I describe my own work as sort of expressionist. I'm interested in how an artist sees the world rather than how well an artist renders something that's already there. I mean, for me, that's why we have photography. Like, I can see what's there. I don't need you to show me that. What I need, as personally, is for you to show me how you see it, or how it makes you feel, or show me something of you in the expression of the work. That's what I personally respond to most as an artist and as a person, as a viewer of art. And that's the thing that I really want to convey with my own work as well. Like, I have no interest in painting a photorealistic portrait of a cat. Like, that means nothing to me. I'm using cats here as symbols of something. Essentially, this collection is entirely self-portraits. And one of the questions that people ask me a lot when they see this collection is like, oh, why cats? And I always find myself sort of bristling a little bit at that, because they're not cats. I mean, they are cats, but they're not, more importantly. And what I'm trying to convey here is something completely different. I'm showing you a feeling. I'm showing you something which is cat-like.
Something that's innately yourself.
Something that is innately myself, yeah. And for that, it makes sense to do it like this, because the colour and the form and the shape and the interplay of the texture and everything I've done on the picture plane, basically, is an element that goes towards, I hope, translating that to the viewer.
So there's this dichotomy of your art. On one hand, it's the bold and bright, childlike, naive even. But on the other hand, it's very personal, humorous, intellectual. Is that intentional?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the bright and the colourful and the silliness is sort of a good access point for people. People can come into it on a purely visual level and enjoy it as, you know, a bright, colourful cat on a canvas. But what I love and what I encourage people to do is to come a little bit deeper into the work and into my world as a whole and experience the stories and the ideas and the intellectual side of things. I'm a very thinky artist, I'm very intellectual, I'm very cerebral. Like, I like the stories and the concepts and the ideas almost as much as I like the visual. My brain kind of does both together. And whilst I love it when people enjoy it purely on a visual level, I also am most gratified when people can come with me into the story side of things. Because it also makes it a bit less of a jolt when I do something that's a bit darker or a bit edgier, because when you can see the through line between all of it, then it makes a lot more sense.
Which one of these works was the most surprising experience, the most challenging experience to make?
I don't know that any of them were particularly challenging. Some of them were more joyful than others. Some of them just sort of fell out of the end of my brush. I struggled with the eyes in the magic. They were a number of different colours before they ended up being that sort of dark blue and pale blue. I had an idea in my head, and then translating it visually just wasn't quite working, so I repainted it over and over and over again. And the face on this one as well, I got so up in my head about it, and I hundreds of practice gestural faces so I could just do it on the canvas. I mean, I did it eventually, but I was so nervous because I was so happy with everything else that had happened, and I was terrified of fucking up at the last minute. And luckily I didn't, and it worked. But yeah, I spent a long time trying to get it right, and I think if I just kind of relaxed and let myself go a little bit more, it would have been a much less fraught experience.
Regarding the intuitive versus the intellectual element in your paintings, which comes first in the process? Do you think of an idea for your image and the inherent properties of it, or do you let the brush speak for itself and see what comes next?
It depends very much on the painting. A lot of the time my work starts as ideas and the more kind of intellectual side of things. And then once I have the idea and that has kind of fleshed itself out and taken form, that's when I go to the materials, and the materials kind of show me how to finish the work, if that makes sense. So there's sort of like two distinct parts of the process. The first all happens in my head, and then when I actually get to the production phase, I'm very loose and very intuitive, and I'm very much, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Let's do this together with me and my paint and my canvas and whatever else I'm using. That's where the sort of the intuitive channeling sort of process happens.
Would you say like goes back and forth between the intellectual and the intuitive?
I think once I've come to the end of the intellectual run on a particular piece, like once that production handwork side of things has taken over, then I'm pretty much done with it. But in the terms of putting a collection together, then yeah, it does go backwards and forwards from piece to piece.
The paintings have this very particular light to them. Is there a particular technique you use to achieve that? Or is it just a choice of colour?
They glow, don't they? They really glow. It mostly comes down to colour choice and choosing different shades of the same colour and getting a tonal range going. It has a sort of alchemical effect of making the whole painting glow. But yeah, the colour is the thing that gets all the glory, but it's the tone and the value and the, you know, how light a thing is or how dark a thing is that is actually doing the most of the work, and the colour just kind of lies on top.
The colours in your palette seem very unique to you. Where do they come from?
I think it's just what I like. I sort of think of it as like a sophisticated rainbow. I like to dirty my colours up quite a lot. I tend not to use colours that are straight out of the tube because they're often too vibrant and too garish. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that because so much of my work is so vibrant and colourful. But I knock back all of my colours, I mix in neutrals. They're so much more desaturated than you would expect. And that's where the tone comes into play. And you can see every now and again I'll use a pop of a saturated colour straight out of the tube, and it really like leaps off the canvas at you. And that's something that I use to my advantage. You'll see like pops of neon pink and things. I don't think I've used it particularly in this collection, but you'll see in a lot of my other work there'll be a pop of neon pink and it just lifts everything.
Do you feel like this collection stands out compared to the rest of your work? Is it different somehow?
I feel like this collection, I mean, I did this collection back in 2022, and I feel like this is the collection where I really figured out what I wanted to do with my work and what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. And I remember just being utterly transported as this work was coming out of me and I saw it all together. I was like, yeah, this is...
It's raw, quintessentially you.
The meanness of it. And I've been able to use that experience in subsequent collections to keep that meanness, that essence of me. But this was really a turning point for me. This is where I was like, okay, this is the work that I make and nobody else does. This is me.
Considering how personal these paintings are to you, do you feel sad when you let them go?
Heartbroken. But I'm also so happy for them to go to loving homes all over the world. I have work in private collections all over the globe, and hearing that people are being brought joy every day because they have a piece of my work hanging in their home, or I get messages, you know, people like send messages from their painting to check in, so I know kind of how it's going, and I keep in touch with almost all of my collectors, and that brings me enough joy to counteract the kind of the wrench when they go off on their own into the world. I'm always like on tenterhooks until they've arrived at their destination, but if they're making other people happy, then that's what they're for. I can make more.
All right, I have one final question. Where does the name Je Suis Wibbly-Wobbly come from?
So I used to do business and marketing consulting, and one thing that I would say over and over again is encouraging people to show up in their wibbly wobbly wonky glory, as in show up warts and all exactly as you are, be honest and enthusiastic and genuine, and don't worry about what people think of you. And when you say Je suis wibbly-wobbly in an outrageous French accent, it sounds hilarious. So originally it was I am wibbly-wobbly, and then I was like, fuck it, let's put it in French.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me lovely questions.